All right, and I would like to tell you that we will be going live on YouTube as well. So you will be able to see the recording on our YouTube channel whenever you would like later on. All right, so even though we have more people coming in, I think it's time to start. Uh, So welcome everyone to our Design the Future Post-COVID Hackathon. We are very pleased on the behalf of Riyadh for Social Innovation to be organizing this one-of-a-kind hackathon in the Arab world. As you all know, COVID-19 struck us suddenly, and for some time we were all perplexed and didn't know what to do. And by the time we had already submitted a proposal for Legacy International to sponsor a series of peace tech hackathons in Lebanon. And of course, after COVID happened, our original plans couldn't just be implemented, and we couldn't do a hackathon the traditional way. So our ultimate goal was to reach as many youth as we can in the Lebanese community and to go to the different regions that are otherwise less represented. But with COVID, everything changed, and we had to adapt, and we had to change, and we had to be open-minded. And thanks to Legacy and to their mentorship and to the mentorship of Dr. Kaufman as well, who's here with us today, we opted to change the plan and to go for a regional hackathon. And why just keep it in Lebanon when you're online and everybody is connected now to the internet more than ever? And when we talk about problems that we face in our communities, it's not just about one geographical area. We have a lot of similar problems that we all face, and we could collaborate together and we could really work hand in hand to help create better solutions. And this is why we believe in partnerships and collaborations and directly sought the partnership from the Youth Leadership Program with UNDP Arab States. So thank you so much for accepting to be partners with us. Also, we have Ms. Linda Haddad, who will also give us an introductory talk in the opening remarks shortly. And we also partnered with Global Transformation Core, also represented by Dr. Rash and Dr. Kaufman today, who will also be talking to us. So I would really like to thank, again, Legacy International for sponsoring our this youth initiative and helping us spread the message of social innovation and positive change throughout the entire Arab world. We will be sharing with you some statistics at a later stage regarding who is participating with us, but we would like to say that only a third of our participants are from Lebanon, although our presence is mostly local. However, thanks to our partners, the Youth Leadership Program at UNDP and the Global Transformation Core and Legacy International, we were able to reach out to a wide audience of social innovators in the Arab world. And we have a great representation from Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, Sudan, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and many other countries that we will, of course, talk about in a while. So thank you again so much for our partners and for helping us and supporting us with this mission. I'm Mona Aitani. For those who do not know me, I am the founder of Riyadh for Social Innovation. And our purpose is really to help the youth become social innovators and change makers of the future. This is why you see us creating hackathons and training programs, and we are also partners in the in the Youth Leadership Program with UNDP Lebanon, because this is our mission and this is our goal, to have as many social innovators and change makers as we can. And by saying that, I would now like to give the floor to Dr. J.E. Rash, also the founder and president from Legacy International, to also welcome you and give you a brief word about what they do and also why they are partnering with us on this program. So Dr. Rash, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Masa Khair, bon après-midi. What an honor to be with you today, to welcome you to the Design the Future Post-COVID Hackathon. This visionary hackathon is reflective of the mission of my organization, Legacy International, and the United States Department of State Professional Fellows Program, Educational and Cultural Affairs Division grants, and Legacy's international commitment to creating a new tomorrow today. My signal might be a little weak, and if something happens with it, please give me some sign so I know that I should pause and let it come back. For the next 3 days, that's what you will be doing, taking knowledge and skills and personal vision and ideals and turning them into practical solutions to address the incredibly demanding issues we face globally, nationally, locally, personally. We'll be building the foundation for a new exciting legacy of health, equity, equality, harmony, and compassion and peace. A legacy where mutual benefit and care and concern for the other is a core principle of life. What unites us as human beings as our shared universal values. For over 40 years, I and my organization and our staff have striven to pioneer and employ practical applications of the values that unite all humanity, our common DNA. What others may think as soft tools, we see as essential means for addressing the myriad of challenges each of us face daily. We are all born in goodness. We all respond to and seek peace and compassion, justice, equality, harmony, security, equity, love. So you are people who can and must find the technological means to build the future, not for personal gain, but for the sake of all humanity, for the sake of our planet. You specifically, who can still see and taste and feel the values of family and cultural heritage, who understand the bonds between generations, you who have all too often seen human beings suffering and who know the reality of social strife, you who have sought to affirm a positive future and have a sense of duty instilled in you from your mother's milk, are the hope for the future. And that's why we at Legacy International and myself personally have devoted so much time and effort to our work in the MENA region and beyond, even on 5 continents. Work that is based on those universal values. We have pioneered work in values-driven leadership. Our mission is to empower the next generation entrepreneurs and social innovators to effectively realign our economic system from short-sighted profit maximization to generating equitable, sustainable social impact. And our goal is nothing less than finding and working with innovators who seek and who embrace, draw their vision and commitment from a wellspring of values and love for one another. You who are in the Middle East, the MENA region, in that part of the world, have a unique opportunity to lead the world in the future. You have answered a call. Ostensibly, it was a call that came to you from the internet in an outer form to join this hackathon. But what I see and know is a call from within to transform our world from being totally transactional to one that is transformative and sustainable. We don't have much time. Just as a hackathon is an intense process of creativity and cooperation and collaboration, so too what is demanded of us due to a planetary pandemic and climate change and food security and poverty issues, political disruptions, greed, prejudice, forces us to draw upon our experiences, our vision, our creativity, our skills to create a new geometry, an arc of change for the good at a time of global crisis on so many fronts. You are the catalyzers and have major responsibility for designing and affecting this world and all life that dwells on it and in it. COVID-19 represents to me a deeper spiritual and ethical dis-ease we are seeing throughout the globe. A degradation of human status mirrored in climate change and degrading social norms like justice and gender equality, economic opportunity for all. It's a time, my friends, for regeneration. In his new book, Empower Us, Dr. Ira Kaufman, who you'll be hearing very soon, one of the founders of Legacy International's new initiative, the Global Transformation Corps, points out the same crisis I have described. He will, I'm sure, explain GTC's strategies for post-COVID transformation and how we can all collaborate for planetary change, personal success, and equity for everyone. So in these next few days, you have the opportunity to address the real post-COVID issues in very practical ways. And thanks to support from Riada and her founder, Mona Itani, a Legacy alumni I might mention, and her colleagues, and from partners like UNDP, along with Legacy International and our global network of mentors and trainers and alumni, we can work together to make the needed transformation happen. So we have to begin now. Let's begin in the next few days to create what I call a new tomorrow today. Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi said, change comes through necessity, therefore, oh man, create necessity. Well, we know the necessity now, so let's work on change. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be with you and to speak with you. And let's begin to succeed in every endeavor we have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rash. Your words are always inspirational to all of us, and we are super happy to have you with us and to have Legacy International as the sponsor of this hackathon. Thank you again. And now I would also like to welcome Ms. Linda Haddad, who is the project manager for the Youth Empowerment Regional Program for the United Nations Development Program for the Arab States Regional Bureau based in Amman, Jordan. Linda has been working with the UN for over 10 years, both supporting youth programming and oversight and support to country-level projects. She has 2 masters, one from Columbia University in International Affairs, Economics, and Political Development, and a second in Corporate Social Responsibility from Steinweiss University, Germany, in addition to a Bachelor of Arts degree in Communications Journalism. So also thank you, and thank you for the valuable partnership from the UNDP, and I would like you also to have an opening word.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mona. Welcome, everybody. We are so delighted to be a part of this opportunity to engage youth in this exercise of looking towards the future post-pandemic. COVID-19 has impacted all of us, and my condolences are to those who've lost friends and family to this terrible virus. The pandemic has made an already difficult context in the Arab states even worse, as pre-existing challenges are now compounded by regression on progress made over the last decade. But here, today, we believe that this pandemic has also presented new opportunities to build back better. This hackathon is one of our attempts to welcome young change makers to innovate and to prepare for a post-COVID world. This is just the beginning of a discussion, and we hope the space and time over the weekend allows for lots of collaboration and inspiration. I would like to thank Riada for social innovation, Mona Atani for leading this hackathon, and many thanks to Global Transformation Corps for their partnership and to Legacy International for their support. I wish you all a very inspiring weekend innovating. We look forward to the outcome and best of luck. Back to you, Mona. Thank you.
Thank you so much again, Linda, for your trust and for your partnership. And we definitely look for more collaborations and partnerships with the UNDP and the Youth Leadership Program more specifically. And I would like to say that actually we have many youth participants who are either YLP alumni And we also have mentors who are YLP partners as well from across the Arab world. And we noticed special enthusiasm from Morocco and Tunisia. So a huge shout
Fantastic.
out for YLP, Morocco, and Tunisia as well. Thank you so much. And now we would like to really set the foundation for the hackathon. And we would like to talk more about the themes that we are working on. So as all the participants have seen in the application form, we asked them to choose between one of two tracks. The first track, we called it Peace Technology, and was the original purpose behind the hackathon before we had COVID. And really, when I talk about peace technology, it's about how to use technology to create more peaceful and more prosperous communities, given that we all know that maybe the vast majority of Arab countries now are either in conflict or have been in conflict not a long time ago. So even Lebanon, for example, if you think about it, we have intermittent conflict, but also we had a civil war not a long time ago. So the concept of peace technology applies, I believe, very well to the entire Arab region. And we have to think about how we can use technology and the enhancements of today's resources in order to create more peace in the world and to help the Arab people to come out from conflict and war. So that's the first track. And the second track is what we call the post-COVID world. So this is really inspired by the COVID pandemic that we are all still living. And I got several comments saying, but like we're still in COVID. Why are you talking about post-COVID now? It's simply that we need to start planning from now how we want our world to look like after COVID is over. So we want you as the social innovators, the change makers that we trust so well as our youth and leaders of the future, to really think about what we can do so that when we come out of COVID, we can have a better Arab world, really. So this is, and as you can think about it, it's really a broad theme. It's not very specific. So it could be healthcare we're talking about. It could be how to reduce inequality, because COVID has highlighted the inequalities that we have in our society, and many other things. So it really touches upon all the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And on the Slack channel, we already posted a lot of resources from the United Nations on the intersection between COVID and its effect on the Sustainable Development Goals, and some agenda or plans to combat this, really. So I would like now to welcome our speakers for this second round of introductions, setting the foundation, Dr. Ira Kaufman, and I will just read his bio very quickly. So Dr. Ira is a post-COVID strategist, and he always, his responsibility is to self-reflect, observe conditions, and transform himself in order to regenerate organizations committed to sustaining our planet. He is author of multiple books, and he has a new book that I believe he will be talking to you about. It's very relevant to the context that we're talking about today, and he is generous enough to share with us some of his writings and resources. And he also even talked about having his book as one of the awards for the winners of the hackathon. So also, as I mentioned, Dr. Ira was a mentor for us in planning this hackathon. Thank you so much for all your efforts. And I would also like to introduce Mr. Roberto Crocchi, who's also going to be sharing this session. Mr. Crocchi is the managing director of Microsoft for Startups in the Middle East and Africa region, which has a vision to drive innovation and develop market-defining ideas in the Middle East. He was previously the regional head Google marketing for Google marketing platforms, and he has been awarded and nominated twice in Google for Best Coaching Manager and Best Googler Inspiring Hero. So we are very happy to have you with us simply because we know the role of now Microsoft. And if you guys go and go to Microsoft for Startups, you will see that they have special emphasis on social entrepreneurship and on AI for good. And this is exactly what we're talking about today. We also have a third speaker who I believe will be joining us in a few minutes, but I'm going to be introducing him. His name is Omar Aitani, and I believe that if you are in Lebanon, you will know about Omar simply because Omar is an award winner and he was named the UN Champion of the Earth for last year. He is a very young entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, who really made himself from scratch. He created Fabric Aid, which is a social enterprise, and he has raised over $1 million so far in this social enterprise, which is pretty unique and unprecedented, I would say, in our country. So he is proving to us that it is really possible to create business with high social impact and be able to attract investments and to be able to be very sustainable. So I believe his story will be very inspiring for all the youth with us today. But let us start with Dr. Kaufman. So Dr. Kaufman, the talk now is really about the role of the youth in designing the future of the Arab world. What do you have to say about that, given that you're not just a COVID strategist, but you're also a COVID survivor yourself? You need to unmute yourself. Let's do that again.
All right, better?
Yes,
okay, good.
Definitely.
All right, Salam alaikum. It's an honor to be here, and thank you, Mona, for all the work you've done and your team. We really need to really relook at where we are as a humanity and where we are going as a world. And we're really honored at Legacy International and Global Transformation to be part of this regional imperative. Personally, as a COVID survivor, I feel the pain and of many families who have lost people and the people who have lost resources. We need to understand that with compassion, and at the same time, we need to look forward to develop a collaborative response. From my work in business and my understanding and looking through a values lens, I want to talk about COVID in the MENA region and how we could respond. And the word today has to be about collaboration and how we can collaborate in an effective way. So I'm going to lay out some local conditions pretty quickly, challenging questions, and provide some input to action, sort of like a snapshot of how young people can really work and develop this collaboration. There's no need to take notes. I'll share this with the Slack chat. You know, it's a little post, and it might be a guidance for your team discussions. So quickly, you know, in the MENA region, you know, everybody's been, the travel has been grinding to a halt. People across the world have been staying home, and everybody's been impacted by COVID, from mental and physical conditions to, in the Middle East, a sudden drop in oil demand, significantly reduced job and income, paralyzed tourism in both religious sites and general tourism, which is decreasing regional growth, and clearly a strain on the healthcare facilities. So I looked at how would I approach this subject, this vast subject of challenges and crisis in the region. So I began asking some questions as a consultant. So, and I invite you as team members to start thinking about each of these questions. What has changed in your local community related to COVID? That might be a simple question, but what really has changed? And more importantly, not only what's materially changed, but how are the people in your communities affected psychologically, spiritually, and materially? Because this COVID is pervasive. Having had it, it destroys your physical and your mental sense and your connection to community. So that has a really deep and profound effect. And I'm warning, it's not only those, hundreds and thousands and millions of people who have left this planet, may God give them light, but it's also the millions of people who have been infected, and we do not know the effect on these people physically and mentally. So that's the second point. The third point is, how do we, on a local basis, on a community basis, understand what we value in this context of COVID? What's important to us? What are driving us to change, to adopt different practices, to buy different products? What is the value that we really cherish and have changed as a result of COVID? The fourth is, and this is what I look at in all startups, is this question of the gap. What is the gap between what's available, what we value, and what we need? And how does your inspired initiative address that gap? Really address that gap. And the fifth is, how do you fill that gap and deliver value at the same time? So it's strategic. You have to look at the gap that's there, the need, and how you can fulfill and deliver value. And then you need, of course, in any marketing situation, you'll have to look at who's your market. Are they the rising voices in the world? That's part of my new book, Empower Us. We call the rising voices the next generation, Gen Z and the millennials, the women, and the marginalized. These are voices that are screaming to be heard globally. They're screaming to be heard as consumers, as citizens, as agents of change. Are we addressing those people's needs? How are we answering them? How are we supporting them? You are part of that change. How are we supporting you? And what is the greater community and these voices feeling? Isolated, fearful, COVID burnout, don't know what to do, not inspired? How do you motivate them? How do you create an initiative which will re-engage these people in the solution? Seventh is, what do they want? What do they really want in terms of what they value? And what do they want? Do they want safety? They want security? They want trusted information? They want authentic communication? They want entertainment which is safe and secure? What do they want? And how can you deliver that in a purposeful and meaningful way? And the eighth challenge is impact. What is the impact of your project on community, both short and long term? And how are you going to measure that? Well, we could look at some opportunities real quickly, and they're not exhaustive, and you'll have many, many more. But in the business marketplace, it's changed dramatically in the last 10 years, 10 to 20 years, from industrial to consumer related, and now to information oriented. And I'm sure Roberto will discuss that in depth, as Microsoft is a leader in technological and human-centered entrepreneurship. But how do we switch from a command and control hierarchical business environment or social organizational innovation environment to one that's involving, inclusive, and more like a shared economy like Airbnb or Careem? How do we look at the region's educational system as playing a pivotal role in how to drive a knowledge-driven economy? And what place do we as young people, or you as young people, play in that innovation? How do we develop the capacity of emerging entrepreneurs to develop human-centered, sustainable solutions? And as a co-founder of the Global Transformation Corps, that's our mission. And to me, as a person who sits in 2 or 3 different worlds in business and education and nonprofit, I really believe that the foundational solution which lies at the vortex of what's important is to build win-win collaboration between yourselves as rising voices and the centers of power in business politics who need your support, We need to find real ways for you to be sitting at the table and be included in the decision-making and not just outside influences. And the last is, how do we develop authentic responses for all the misinformation? As Dr. Rash has talked about, it's a disease, it's a virus in the world. And how do we create trusted information and to exchange transformative solutions? We need to all be part of that transformation and have to learn from each other in collaboration. So I'm going to just go through a quick response to what Mona had said, is that, are we going to return to normalcy, or what we call a new harmony? Most traditional businesses currently are suffering financially. Some are paralyzed, and many, from my experience, are waiting for the new normalcy, for the return to the normalcy, or what they feel is comfort. But your challenge is not that. As Dr. Rash says, we need to create the new tomorrow today. We need to reinvent the future. You're not only going to become entrepreneurs, but rather what we call catalyzers of change. Ones who are inclusive and human-centered. They care about people. They're driven by people as their vision. They care about all the people who are involved in the community as equitable stakeholders. If you're a consumer, an employee, a partner, an investor, or part of the community, you're a stakeholder in our future. And the third area about creating this harmony is how we work together to rebuild, transform, and fundamentally reshape the solutions which we're dealing with. And that has to be driven by the emerging technologies, a different sense of business practices, and a way we measure the impact. So I'm going to close with 5 qualities of what we're calling yourself as catalyzers or resilient entrepreneurs. And some of this is based on a really insightful study by Deloitte's Leadership Global Survey. And the first one is designed from the heart and the head. At Legacy, we talk about values. And in my book, we developed 4 values to begin as a starter. We call them the test values: trust, empathy, sustainability, and transparency. How do you look at a crisis and solution through the lens of these values? How do you look at a solution through the lens of trust? How do you develop that trust and show empathy for all of your stakeholders? By listening and responding, of course. How do you project sustainability into the environment, both financial sustainability, environmental sustainability, and the sustainability of our health and our well-being? At the same time, how do we show empathy and care and understanding by listening to all of our stakeholders, even if they don't have a financial commitment, but they have a human commitment? And how do we project and understand the true value of for all of the stakeholders in our mission or our project? One of the things that we feel that is critical to this designing from the heart and the mind is to practice self-reflection or organizational reflection, to reflect and be accountable for how these values are transmitted and lived in our society. The second is to put the why and the purpose of your organization first. First, of course, you have to develop the purpose of your initiative. And then after you develop it, you have to be totally committed and laser focused on transmitting it into your actions. And at the same time, direct all your team to look through that lens of your purpose at the crisis and how you can leverage opportunities and hold yourself accountable to that purpose. The third characteristic as catalyzers is aim for speed over elegance. I was always brought up to create the most excellent and the perfect entity in terms of a startup. But now we've learned that entrepreneurship is a learning experience. Obstacles and failures is part of the progress and the path. So we need to design and test constantly, more like a 3D model. You could put something out, you see if it works, and you reprogram it and redesign it. We have to be that quick and that responsive. And we have to learn to use data as much as we have and as imperfect as it is to design decisive action, because we don't have a lot of time and we have to work collaboratively. And we have to listen. We have to listen and listen more to quickly adjust and based upon feedback, and not be judgmental of and impatient on our results. The fourth element of being a catalyzer is to own the narrative. Be courageous. As Gandhi said, be the change, or we say be the transformation within your own team and your own community. Each one of us have to be exemplary of this inclusive and inspired and human-centered approach. We have to embrace the disruption as an opportunity for change and not as something to be defeated or to be victimized by. We have to be transparent about the current realities and to work to gain trust among all of our stakeholders by integrating the opportunity and inspiring the team with new ways and new visions of the future. And the final element is to embrace the long term, the long view, balance the short term with long-term impact. And we need to build a new kind of transformative business model, nonprofit model, community model, which has a wow factor in it, one that is inspiring people to think differently and reshape their future, and where people can actually experience the change. In business, we talk about the importance of the customer experience. Well, this is the stakeholder experience. They have to feel that we can make a difference in this post-COVID world. And the last two things, we have to spark ongoing innovation, which is both sustainable and practical, and we have to persevere. We must persevere because this is not a short-term path. Transformation is not a quick fix, and it's one we must really commit to and inspire each other in terms of collaboration. So that's sort of an overview. I'm going to be a mentor and for you and be able to consult with you. But these are the kinds of things that I've learned from my 40 years of experience, and happy to share it with you and help in any way to guide this process. Thank you very much for the opportunity and look forward to the results of your initiatives.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kaufman, and we'll get back to you with the questions from the audience as well. And now I would like to move to Mr. Roberto Crocchi, and I would like to ask you more about the role of the youth when it comes to technology startups and technological solutions. I know you have a special support for AI-based startups. Okay, so I'm sorry about that.
I just lost you in the last 20 seconds. Sorry, Mona.
Yes, it's okay. So yeah, I was saying that it would be great for you to walk us through some examples as well from startups maybe that you are currently supporting or looking at maybe to support under Microsoft for Startups in order to inspire our participating youth in this hackathon on some possible things that they can do as well when it comes to using technology for the social good.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me, and it's a honor to share time and insights with you today, and inspired about the speeches and what Professor Ira just shared about being catalyzers of change, of transformation, and redefine a new wave of leadership at some point, also to base decisions and actions on values and on social impact, and this is extremely important. So as you were saying, so I with Microsoft, and I spent most of my career in technology companies. So the role of technology is definitely important in enabling change, right? So technology can help build great products that people are going to use, and products that can help and have an impact on millions of people. And technology can help scale these products globally, right? So and technology can help now, as Professor Ira was mentioning, leveraging data, right? So technology allow us to crunch the data and use data in a way that can have real social impact if used for good. So I would like to touch base on technology, and maybe touch base also on the mindset that we'd love to see youth embodying when looking at entrepreneurship. Starting from technology, let me start from an example. We have been talking about being inclusive, right? So if we think about people of determination and accessibility, for example, this is a great example where technology can help. And a technology company like Microsoft, for example, is leading the way in the sense that when we build product, we try to build for everyone. And try to develop products that are inclusive and also people of determination can use. If you think about it, in the past, you had to adapt to the world. In the future, the world will adapt to you, because through the use of technology, it will be possible to build solutions that everyone can use. And accessible technologies enabled by artificial intelligence, for example, can help people with disabilities unlock their full potential at work, for example, with inclusive content that they can interact with, at school with inclusive learning, so they can really make their progress and interact also with other students and the teachers, or even at home, think about inclusive gaming, so giving the possibility to everyone to enjoy moments of happiness. And we believe that accessibility, for example, is a human imperative. So if you think about it, more than 1 billion people have disabilities across the globe, and 15% of the world's population today. And many of them need assistive technology, but only 1 in 10 have access to the products that they really need. And disability is something that can affect any of us at any time. So this is inspiring, because accessibility at the end of the day is also a business imperative. There are studies and researches that show that companies that embrace best practices for employing and supporting persons and people of determination in the workplace outperform their peers. They see an average 30% higher revenue, twice higher net income. So there is also a business impact in helping people of determination and building for everyone. And people never stop thinking that if you don't design for accessibility and inclusion, it's basically like saying that to every 5th person who walks in your door, you don't really want your business. And that's quite scaring as a number, right? And as an example. That's why I wanted to start from this example, an example of if you think about people of determination, people with disabilities, the role of technology is key to enable everyone to access to opportunities, right? So that's where the technology can play its role at its best. Is tech for good? Is technology for good? And to inspire you with some example, as Mona was asking, we are running, for example, a program that is called AI for Good. So how you can use AI, artificial intelligence, for humanitarian actions, for helping refugees, for healthcare, and so on and so forth. We are running this program where we have a curriculum where we select startups that can have social impact, or they are going to leverage technology like AI for a good purpose. And in the cohort, we take them through a curriculum. We have different tracks from the basics of entrepreneurship to specific content related to social impact, from how to raise funds with social conscious investment, to how to build products for everyone, to how to think about ethical AI, for example, if you think about all the biases that you can have in building algorithms and artificial intelligence, to a manifesto for responsible AI, and so on and so forth. Some examples of startups we have been working with, for example, in the last cohort, we had a startup for girls that is a social tech company focused on reducing mental health crisis among teenagers, and it was a very successful one. We had another startup, Green Eye, that, for example, utilizes artificial intelligence to disrupt the agricultural pest control process, transitioning from the current practice of broadcast and wasteful spraying to precise and selective spraying of herbicides. So basically they leverage data to control all of the process, right? So, and they developed a proprietary selective spraying system that turns every sprayer into a smart machine with seamless integration. So there is also an environmental impact related to this solution. Another solution we have been working with is IVIX. IVIX develops novel technologies for tax authorities to deal with the shadow economy. And a lot of solutions that were part of the last cohort were related to healthcare, and most likely the recent pandemic, of course, accelerated, and created more ideas and more solutions around how to reimagine health and healthcare. MDI Health, for example, has developed a personalized drug therapy system, which is powered again by artificial intelligence, that basically the system is able to record and manage essential drug information to help basically ensure the efficacy and safety of treatment and the early detection of potential medication-related problems. Another example is Octopus Health. Octopus Health is an innovative patients engagement platform for proactive population health. So the technology basically creates a healthcare personal assistant that supports millions of patients and tailors a personalized proactive healthcare plan for each patient based on advanced machine learning algorithms. We had also other solutions, as we talked about accessibility. A very good one was EqualWeb, which basically is a digital accessibility AI that provides a solution for people with disabilities to browse the web. And we had other solutions, like, for example, right here was a solution like a virtual assistant app for people with orientation challenges that allow them to acquire better independence, both indoor and outdoor. Rural Census was another solution that provides ethical, unbiased, cost-efficient, verifiable beneficiary analytics data to measure needs and impact in refugee and displaced people settlements. Seismic AI was an earthquake early warning systems based on AI and seismic data, and many more. Here, for example, in the UAE, we have another one related to accessibility and people of determination. Their name is Key to Enable. They developed a hardware that basically helps people of determination to interact with hardware. And the main goal was to enable people to follow through courses and get through the whole programs, getting a certification, so that to enable the employment of people of determination. So these are some examples, and there are many more, right? So the concept, the common denominator across all of these startups is the use of technology for good. In this case, the program is mainly targeting startups and founders that leverage artificial intelligence specifically to leverage data and artificial intelligence and modeling and machine learning to build solutions that are for good, as we have seen some of the example I shared before. So this is to touch base on the area of the technology itself, and happy to take any questions further on. The other aspect that I would love to touch base is also related to what Ira was mentioning before about the transformation process. And I like it to take it from an angle, especially when talking to youth, I like it to take it from the angle of mindset. What is the right mindset? What is the mindset you should have when looking at, building a new venture, building a startup, or creating a new solution that can have impact? And we fundamentally believe that you should have yourself a mindset that is a growth mindset. And growth mindset means that you are eager to learn more than showing off how much you already know. So you really transform yourself into a learning human being that is constantly learning, insatiably curious. You are willing to lean into the uncertainty that we see in the world today, and you're willing to take risks. But also you're willing to look at others not like enemies or competition, right? You're willing to look at others as their success not diminishing yours, but someone or solutions where you can build on top of, right? So because if someone already found a great solution for something, a right approach or a great approach is to take that and build on top of that if you have a use case for, right? So this is all growth mindset, is challenges, continuously finding challenges to help you grow, and turning every opportunity, even a failure, into a learning opportunity, taking the positive side and the learnings out of it and move forward. This is what for example, Ira was mentioning before about startups today being more in a kind of a 3D model, right? You said something like you're always in beta, right? I've been working 10 years at Google, and we released products that, you know, were not perfect at all. And actually had a lot of bugs or a lot of things that were not really working, but the real value was getting feedbacks early on from the early adopters, the users, and keep that cycle going, right? And then injecting you know, those feedbacks into the next version and so on and so forth. And this is basically how the whole company was still operating. So some takeaways from my experience that I would love to share before we jump into the questions, your questions, is some tips, you know, to develop this entrepreneurial mindset. And these tips are just based on my experience, which is shorter than Professor Ira, but still I have the privilege of working in great technology companies, being in a startup myself before, and working with the startup ecosystem today at Microsoft. So the first tip, the first takeaway from my experience is that I've been spending my career on technology companies, and we talked about technology before, but the key takeaway is that it's always about people. Technology is an enabler for change, is an enabler for transformation, but it's people with the right mindset and with their energy and with you know, the collaboration aspect of when people work together that can make the real difference, right? So my takeaway is always to youth is always look out for the best people and try to work for them. So just don't look at the name of companies, but look for great people that are inspiring, that are out there to try and achieve impact, gain perspectives by finding great people. So, and this is ultimately up to you. Nobody will come to you, right, if you don't do anything. So you need to be proactive about building your support network and creating connections with people when you will hear a lot of, you will need to do networking, but you need to connect with people in a meaningful way. And surround yourself with positive people, because that positivity brings energy, infuse energy, and that's contagious. A second takeaway is, and I think Professor Ira touched base before on this, is starting with the why. Starting with the why means asking the hard questions. I have to tell, I have the privilege of being in many competitions where I hear a lot of pitches, and in average, what I see is that young founders tend to skip very fast to the space of the solution. Whereas I would love to hear more time spent on explaining the real problem that you are trying to tackle with your solution. Because sometimes you are passionate about your idea, right? And you believe in your idea, and that's what keeps you up at night and gives you the energy. But there should be an addressable market. That idea should be used by people. So sometimes what I see is that solutions that can curate or address a symptom, but not the real problem. And that comes with asking the why question and what is the purpose of what you're doing, and giving clarity to that purpose. So the job of the leader at the end of the day is being comfortable, not having all the answers, but also asking the right questions. And that connects with the third takeaway, which is leadership should be about helping others. So it's not about yourself and your job title, right? Forget about that. It starts with, first of all, the awareness of who you are, you know, finding your blind spots, how open you are to getting the feedback from others, and then focusing on your strengths to get out of your comfort zone and build on your strengths. At the same time, leadership is about change and transformation, and that means action. That means mobilizing something, right? So you need to mobilize other people around you to get you to your goal, mobilize your boss if you work in a corporation, your colleagues. But first of all, you need to mobilize yourself first, because in order to empower others and in order to measure the success by the difference you make in others, people's lives, you need to mobilize yourself first. And that relates also to the concept of trust that Ira already mentioned before. which is the result of the professionalism you have and the competence you have, but also the intimacy you're able to build with your stakeholders, with your users, if you're building a product, with the impact you are going to create. And you check your ego at the door because you really are moved by a bigger purpose, right? And the values that is not just purely economic or the revenues of selling a product. Another takeaway that I have from my experience, and I would love to share because I think it's part of the transformation process, is also about the ability, and this is as a whole to do with entrepreneurship, is the ability of bouncing back. And someone called this resilience, but basically whenever something or someone will bend you down, an entrepreneur is one that is able to bounce back and keep moving forward. So the reality is that doing that has become also increasingly difficult in today's world, because today's world is even more uncertain. And this uncertainty, whenever you hear embrace uncertainty, what does that mean? Embracing uncertainty. In my experience, I don't have a definitive answer for that, but in my experience, what really helps to navigate through that uncertainty is really having your own belief set, which is probably what Professor Ara was mentioning before in terms of a value-based leadership, is having your compass that guide you in those situations. Would I be able to keep my head up if I make this decision, given that I don't have all the information, or given that's a very gray area, right? It's not black and white anymore. So everybody can have their own belief set. But you should have a belief set, because that is the thing that will help you to navigate through that uncertainty. For example, in my case, when it comes to delaying gratification, for example, as a principle you follow is you don't go for low-hanging fruit. Try to think more long-term. And this is a region where there is a lot of short-termism, right? Or sometimes a number of things are there more for the PR side of things rather than the real impact that those things might really have in the society. The other point is, and I think this is also important because it relates to technology, how tech companies are looking at how to be inclusive, right? So we talked a lot about inclusivity. And the key point there is, whether you call it diversity and inclusion, diversity, someone is saying that diversity is being invited to the party and inclusion is being asked to dance, and we can elaborate on top of that, right? But diversity and inclusion shouldn't be reduced only to a gender difference or a geographical difference, right? It's also about that diversity of thinking and the diversity of roles or experiences that you're able to build throughout your career, or meanwhile you build your solution, your startup, right? So it's about being expansive when you work with others, in not killing their idea early on, but then being reductive in terms of when you need to make a decision. It's about more belonging, a sense of belonging, and not putting someone in a corner just because it's a different segment or as some sort of diversity. So my advice here, you need to be proactive as well in building your experiences, having diverse experiences where at some point in your future you can connect the dots, build a diverse network, and you can do that easily. You can map your network today and see, all of the people I know are all from the same industry, are all passionate about that thing only. And you get into that only, right? So you need to be proactive about managing that, knowing that learning from failure is something that is positive, and that you should be, at the end of the day, comfortable in not having all of the answers. So I wanted to touch base on these two aspects. We touch base on the technology side of things, how AI, for example, can be used for good, and we mentioned a number of examples. And we touch base also on the mindset that as a youth, we believe that you should look into for looking at things from a different perspective, looking at what is the real impact of what you're trying to do. And hopefully this pandemic has accelerated the concept that profitability is really important, probably more than growth, right? So building something that is more sustainable in the sense that the social impact created is going to be lasting and having a real impact on society. I believe that this is something that is going to be increasingly important both on the entrepreneur side, so youth willing to build new solutions that have impact, also on the investor side. We hear more and more talking about conscious investing and how investors should look at different metrics when they look at the ventures that they're going to put their money and equity in. With that, I will stop here and looking forward to to this weekend hackathon. Looking forward to your ideas, your feedbacks, your comments, your questions, and best of luck for your journey.
Thank you so much, Roberto. Thank you so much with for sharing all of these inspiring examples. I could see a lot of good feedback already on the chat, and a lot of thinking is already happening there. Thank you so much. And now I would like to move to our third speaker and our young social innovator of the day, Mr. Omar Aitani. And just as a disclaimer, I'm not aware that we are relatives, but we could be, because our family is a large one, but they're mostly connected. So it's one origin. So Omar, we are super happy to have you with us. And basically, I have already said that you and your work are they present huge inspiration for for the Arab world to see that it is possible to create successful social enterprises that have social impact embedded in them and everything they do. So I would really like you to share more about your personal experience, story, and any things that you would like to share with the participating youth today from your own journey. I don't know if you have your camera on.
Yes, it's on, I think.
Yeah, I will spotlight you so everybody can see you. All right, so Omar, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First, thank you for this invitation. I'm very happy and honored to be amongst you today. I'm going to tell you a bit about what Fabricate does, the problem that we tackle, and what we have reached so far. Fabricate is a Lebanese social enterprise that enables underprivileged communities to get decent clothing at extremely affordable prices. What we do is fairly simple. We collect secondhand clothes from schools, universities, businesses. We have partnerships with more than 50 NGOs, and we have clothing collection bins all over the country. The collected clothes is accumulated at our sorting facility, which is one of the biggest in the region. The clothes is sorted, cleaned, merchandised, packaged, and sent. Around 78% of the clothes that we collect is sent to our stores called Souk L'Khlanj. Those are stores positioned in the most underprivileged areas of Lebanon. And through those stores, we target the marginalized communities, and we sell clothing items for prices ranging between 0.1 to maximum $0.4 per item. And the main aim of Fabricate and of the entire concept is the following: dignified shopping experience. People, when they visit the shops, they are in perfect conditions. There's mirrors, personalized advice, fitting rooms, everything is hanged and neatly displayed. People have the chance to choose whatever clothing they want at prices that they can actually afford without feeling that somebody is doing charity for them. But of course, even though we sell at extremely affordable prices, this doesn't mean that we can sell all the clothes that we collect through those stores. Around 6% of the clothes we collect is a bit revealing. Out there, like unique items, extravagant boho designs, African print. Such items are usually not desired by the marginalized communities who tend to be more conservative in their style of clothing. Those items, we take them to another sub-brand that we have at Fabricate, and it's called Second Base. Second Base is, according to Forbes, one of the best vintage stores, not only in Lebanon, but also in the region. It has both an online component and an offline component, and the items are sold to middle class and upper class communities at much higher prices, and all the revenues from Second Base are taken back to Fabricate to sustain the entire operations. And finally, around 16%, the remaining clothing that we collect is in bad conditions. Those are clothing that cannot be reused because it's damaged, it's overconsumed, it's out of stock and out of fashion. Such items We shred them into very small particles, and we create from them pillows, mattresses, construction applications, or even we take old clothes and we create from them new clothing. And we've done fashion exhibitions in Lebanon, in Singapore, in Europe, and all the revenues from those fashion exhibitions are also reinvested back in Fabricate. Currently, we are around 40 employees, and we're expanding into several sectors. We are expanding through creating new verticals, such as a laundromat that works with the general public. So we'll be launching our new laundromat in the end of December, and launching a chain of barter shops similar to Buffalo Exchange, which will be launched beginning of December. And this chain of barter shops, we are launching it because of the, I don't know if you know, because of after the revolution in Lebanon, the explosion, the financial collapse, and the financial crisis, there's a huge demand for affordable secondhand clothing. So we are launching a chain of barter shops to recirculate local clothing. And this is the first way we are expanding through creating new verticals within the country. A second way we are expanding is scaling our operations. So since the beginning of 2020 till now, November 2020, our sales multiplied by 7. Our collection capacity doubled. Our team doubled. So we are increasing our size also within the country, so through simple blitz scaling. And finally, we are expanding into other geographic areas. So hopefully we'll be opening a full-fledged sorting facility and operations in Jordan by July 2021. We were supposed to open up in Jordan before that, but due to the economic situation and due to the COVID-19 situation, we had to delay the expansion to Jordan for a short period of time. But hopefully by July 2021, we'll be operating in Jordan. Our aim as a social enterprise is to tackle the entire value chain of the clothing industry. Currently, we work on secondhand clothing repurposing, but our aim is to tackle the entire value chain from the production, from the agriculture to the production of textiles, fibers, fabrics, clothing, then ending up in secondhand clothing. And our aim in in tackling the fashion industry is to tackle it in a way where it becomes more ethical and affordable, in a way where it becomes affordable not to the minority of people in the MENA region, but to the majority of of people in the MENA region. There's 77 million people in the Arab world who can't afford decent clothing, and our aim is to reach each and every one of them. I know it's a big goal, and it might be like a wild dream, but 3 years ago, we started the company back in 2018, our operations. 3 years ago, we were 2 people. Now we are 40, 45 people. So at the time, we dreamed of what we are at today. And I think it's possible for us to dream today of having an Arab world where everybody can afford decent clothing. And hopefully through the support of the several organizations that have been supporting us, hopefully we'll be able to do something. We'll be able to reach that. Thank you. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
So Amar actually had a question in the chat from Mona, I think her name also. She was asking, can social businesses be profitable?
So it really depends on the legislation of the country. In Lebanon, there's low legislation for the social enterprise status. For example, in the United Kingdom, around 70% of total profits need to be reinvested back in the company, and around 30% can be reshared among the shareholders of the company. The model that we took in Fabricate and we are abiding by, we reinvest 100% of the profits. So none of the shareholders of Fabricate, including myself as a majority shareholder, is allowed to have any profits. So for example, if the company makes a profit of $1 million, the $1 million have to be reinvested back in the company, and they cannot be distributed amongst the shareholders. So if I'm a shareholder who has 10% and we made $100,000, I cannot take $10,000. I need to reinvest it back in the company. That's a personal decision that we took as shareholders in the company, and of course, that's what we do in life. What we do is fabricate, but we live through salaries. We live like all our staff members, and we are able to afford a decent life without sharing the profits, and that's why we felt we don't need to do it. And of course, we wanted to send an example. Um, but this doesn't need to be the case in every social enterprise. Our friends have social enterprises, and some of them distribute parts of the profits, and that's totally acceptable. But it shouldn't be anything more than 50% worldwide, but mostly it should be around 70%, 30% that you can redistribute.
Omar, can you tell us more about the technology that you use in Fabric 8 to make it more scalable and sustainable as well?
So we have in-house developed intricate database systems. So we can track how many, for example, white winter male socks we have at the warehouse. And all of this is through a database system that we've developed internally. And this system allows us to track from where we got the items, when was it sorted, how much it took us time to sort it, to which store it went, how many times it went to the. So we are able to track each and every clothing item. And this is something that you can rarely find, because usually stock inventory softwares are very famous. Oracle, SAP, Microsoft are very famous for developing such softwares. Microsoft Dynamics, SAP, all those companies, Odoo, are very famous for them. But for us, none of those solutions were ideal for us, because we cannot have magnetic strips. We cannot have any technology additives added to any item, because the prices of those items is incredibly low. So we need to track them in bulks. So we had to create something internally that doesn't cost us a lot of money, but in the same time allows us to track each and every clothing item. And without this, we could have never scaled the operation. Like today at Fabricate, sometimes we reach a day where we sort more than 20,000 clothing items with five staff members, or 6 staff members inside the sorting facility. And without having a technology that allows us to do so, this would have been very challenging.
Awesome. So we also had a few other questions, and then we'll open the floor for more questions for all the speakers. So I'm going to group 2 questions together, Ahmed. Did you get any support from the Lebanese government? And yeah, I can see. And another one is how do you differentiate yourselves from other voluntary projects that collect clothing and distribute? And we just had one of our participants in Yemen say they have a similar initiative, but it's a voluntary one.
So regarding the question of getting any support from the Lebanese government, we only get hurdles from the Lebanese government. Of course, no support. I don't think you will find any social enterprise in Lebanon, independent at least, that received any social. You know, Mona, very well, what's the situation. But this wasn't always a negative thing. In Lebanon and in many Arab countries, we live in very chaotic environments where there's little or no trust in public authorities. And since there's no trust in public authorities, Lebanon being a country that has more people living outside and more expats living outside than people living inside, those people want to put their trust somewhere. And since they can't put it in governmental institutions, they look for independent youthful initiatives that they can trust and support. And most of what have been achieved at Fabricate was achieved by the support and the help of Lebanese people and diaspora, not by the Lebanese government. And we've received so much support because those people want to help, and they see in us the way to give back and a way to impact society. So no, we didn't receive support from the Lebanese government, but the lack of the Lebanese government was subsidized or replaced by so many generous people who not only shared with us their financial means, but also their skills, their capacities, their network, their feedback, and their learning and experience. Regarding the other question, we have a lot of initiatives in Lebanon. There's DAFA before us, Arc-en-Ciel, there's today Badin. There's a lot of organizations who do cloth collection and redistribution. And what we are doing is not at all هيك super unique or شو اسمه innovative. what we're doing is fairly simple, and it's done in a lot of countries. But we establish it in a way where it makes a lot of sense, and it's quite unique in the way it's implemented in Lebanon. Now, relying on volunteering base and doing it in a more of a non-profit or an NGO way is very unsustainable. We had huge campaigns, such as DAFA campaign. The biggest clothing collection campaign in the world was done in Saudi Arabia, but none of those campaigns survived because clothing collection and redistribution is incredibly expensive. And relatively complicated to operate. So without having sustainable operations to sustain such huge expenses, you will do the operation for 1 2 years by motivated volunteers, and maybe you got a sponsor from a bank or from a partner. But once the sponsorship goes away, you are left with millions of dollars that you need to spend on a yearly basis, and without having a sustainable way to cover them, those initiatives will inevitably fade off.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Omar. This is a great distinction. And yes, I think you have been innovative, not with the idea itself, but with the execution, like you mentioned. And for us in entrepreneurship, this is the most important thing. I mean, ideas, as you say, they're like everybody shares a lot of similar ideas, but it's really about how you execute it and how you lay the strategy and how you go all the way to implement your vision basically and to realize it in real life. So guys, I actually allowed you to unmute, but kindly, if you have any question, let us raise our hand first. So I hope you are familiar with Zoom and how it works. Nada, do you have a question?
Yes, please. I asked it in the chat, but so I'm just gonna try to make a summary. So you said like the team of Fabric Aid have grown from 2 people to like 46, if I remember correctly. So if you could please just go through how did this team grow so fast in in 2 to 3 years? Because going from 2 people to 46 is a huge number, and especially since I've had experience in starting my own company, and I found it very difficult to actually grow my team because I was like so meticulous about recruiting people, and I was afraid of recruiting the wrong person. And I was wondering if I should be hiring an HR specialist. So if you could please talk to us about like how the recruitment happened, how did you add people to your team, and thank you so much.
Thank you for the question. Usually I tend to say, do things with, don't put so much time on planning and implement as fast as possible, to do what Mr. Roberto was basically saying, to get validation from the ground, and this is incredibly important. But in recruiting team members in particular, taking time is incredibly important. And for us, and in the beginning, until today, we don't have the capacity to hire the best people in the market. And sometimes in some positions we can, because we have the budgets for them, but in others we can't. So for example, the story of the first person who joined me, Hussam, I was looking for a developer to create the system, and the developers I was working with are either very experienced, they were willing to work with me on a tight budget, but they didn't share the right values with Fabricate. On the other hand, I found Hussam. He had all the right values and I was very confident of that, but he lacked the skills. At the time, he was very young, and he didn't accumulate the skills needed to do what Fabricate needs to be done, to do what needs to be done at Fabricate, especially that it's quite complicated. But we took the chance. I preferred values over skills, and this paid off so well for a very simple reason. If you have the skills but you lack the values, it's quite tough to give people the values you have. But if you have the values and with enough passion and energy, people can learn incredibly fast. And Hussam, within a couple of years, he became one of the main developers in internal tracking systems. And the main reason is that he's a very energetic person, smart person who was really willing to learn, and he helped us a lot at Fabricate. So back again to your question, this is an example to say that whenever initial phases, you cannot get everything you want, and sometimes you need to choose one option over another. And I would strongly advise for you to always pick values over skills. Another method that can be incredibly helpful is focusing on people's uh, giving people probation periods. So since recruitment is can be very expensive, it can be risky. So make sure you put people on probation. You see what they do. And the third part, which is the most important part, you need to create a family. But there's a lot of companies and a lot of people say that they want to create a family, but it's some I see in it some bigotry, especially when people do the following. They say that they want to create a family, but whenever people lack, or they don't deliver, or they don't do their work properly, they fire them. In a family, if you are not being a good member of the family, they don't kick you out of the family.
Yeah, that's
They
true.
try to help you, they try to support you, because to create this family bond, you need to feel that this company fights for me and stands for me, not only when I'm giving this company back. This company stands for me and fights for me because I'm part of this company, whether I'm giving or I'm not giving. So the way we do it at Fabricate, we have a very flexible work culture. It's very friendly. It's very young. But something that we focus on a lot. And this to be, I don't know if this is ideal, but this is the way we do it at Fabricate. When people are doing their job well, or if people are not doing their job well at all, regardless of what's the scenario, we never fire anybody, and we never treat people disrespectfully, even if they are not doing their job properly. We try to help, we try to support. When something like that happens, we consider that it's more of a problem in management than it is a problem in the person. But to be also very fair with people who are providing more to the company and the high achievers. People who are not giving back to the company and who are not able to contribute are not fired, are not treated poorly, but they are not promoted. And in a company like Fabricate, growing at the pace of Fabricate, this is what you want. We have in 5 months a stylist that became our brand manager, and now her brand is one of the main contributors to Fabricate's sustainability. So we basically give people back promotions and financial incentives and exposure once they give the company back, but everybody at the company feel that it's properly a family that will stand by them. Combining those three factors with task distribution systems and proper organization, recruitment can be easy, but it remains to be one of the toughest problems.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was very helpful. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna take one question from the chat, and then I will give the room for Sherbil to ask. Dr. Kaufman, from your experience and research, can we prepare for a future where the word pandemic doesn't exist?
Well, that's a really loaded question because we are really in a world of 5 pandemics right now, or 5 crises. And, we could look at the crisis of COVID. We could look at the crisis of climate. We could look at the crisis of misinformation. We could look at the crisis of fear and isolation. And we could look at the crisis of economy. So we're going to be involved in a crisis-driven world. And I think that really what is needed is the kind of leadership which is focused on ongoing transformation and change, and not holding on to the status quo, and being courageous enough to take the next step in terms of where the world needs to go. And that's why I really talked about understanding all of the stakeholders, because to really address the crisis, you have to have, as Roberto was talking about as well, and also to discuss the inclusivity, how you keep a community of people together to really address the issues. So, from all of the work that I've done in traveling around the world and consulting with companies and nonprofits, the problem is we have to relook at the future from a really different vantage point. As our entrepreneur was just suggesting, if we look at it through the lens of values, we're going to have a very consistent way of doing it. Why did Roberto talk about looking through the lens of the why or the future, the purpose? Because that creates the culture and the power. So in the book that I've just written, we call it Empower Us from Crisis to Strategic Harmony. To create harmony in the world, to create success and sustainability, we have to have strategies which are human-centered, technology-driven, and impact-driven. So we have to have a new formula to reshape the world, and it's not based upon the old formula. So I wouldn't focus on the word pandemic or crisis. I focus on how we're going to fix the broken world through solutions which are integrated, comprehensive, and human.
Amazing. Sharbil, would you like to ask your question, please?
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Mona, for this initiative, and thanks for the panelists. My question is to Mr. Roberto. So really, I was so inspired with all the information that you've shared about using the technology for good, especially with in regards to the people with disabilities. So for me, upon graduation from university, the main challenge for me was to find my passion. And after several experiences at work, I finally found my passion, which is being a recruiter. Now I'm a startup entrepreneur, recruiter, and resourcer who supports several companies in Lebanon and in the GCC area. And on the other hand, on the side, I'm visually impaired, so I do have a side vision like 20%. But after I found my passion, I could, cope with everything because I've already was driven with what I'm doing. But the main challenge that I faced when I work, because I've worked in Lebanon in so many companies, so the main challenge as a visually impaired professional I faced is that sometimes we need to use softwares that are related to our profession, and some of them are not somehow accessible or friendly for people with disability. So my question is that is it possible, or are we going to reach into a stage in which the companies that are designing these softwares can build a sort of cooperation or partnership with the tech companies in order to result with the positive outcomes, especially for the people, the professionals that are disabled? And thank you.
Thank you, Sharbel. First of all, thank you for sharing your story. It's inspiring, and this is great what you are doing. You touch on a point that is really is real, right? So, in my opinion, there should be standards and regulation that should prevent software to release software houses that release software that is not accessible to everyone. Now, I can tell you within Microsoft, and it was a hugely positive surprise. The whole cycle of releasing new products, a new version, it goes through accessibility. So if it doesn't meet certain criteria of accessibility, it cannot be released, right? So it's really embedded into the now. You can argue, yeah, a company of this dimension probably have the muscle to implement that, right, at scale. But in my opinion, there should be, as we said before, it's like 1 out of 5 people that knock at your door is like you don't want them to enter, and that's not even conceivable, right? So there should be both on the regulation side, sort of a definition of a standard when software is released that accessibility should be embedded into it. I think it's even a human right, because it's something that could affect any of us, and there is a business impact on top of that, and it's about really building for everyone and not just talking about it. So there should be measures, I think, that should prevent this to happen. Then how the company can help these other companies, first of all, is by inspiring them and showing that there is a real impact in doing that, on helping the people and also on the business impact, right? So by having a Microsoft or other big tech companies telling more what they are doing in terms of building products that are for everyone or building for everyone, this should be inspiring for even creating more demand for the other software companies that maybe are smaller or maybe they're not thinking through it, and making sure that they are aware of the possibility of what you can do and how you should embed accessibility into it. And then I have to tell you, there are big tech companies, but there are also other players here in UAE. There are a couple of players that are really focused on accessibility and building solutions for people of determination, and they can be also a catalyzer of this transformation, right? Because they periodically host event, or you mentioned you are in startup recruiting as well, and they have a solution to help the people of determination find new jobs, and they can be also this agent of change where they can help. It's always an ecosystem where the different constituents should be aligned. It's not just the big tech companies, it's not just the government, it's not just corporations, for example, have also a say in this, because they are adopting these software solutions, right? And they can mandate that they can only adopt software solutions that are accessible, and so on and so forth. So it's not one single stakeholder. I think it's an alignment across the ecosystem that should be driven towards.
Awesome. So I think you broke up a little bit at the end, but you were close to finishing your idea, right?
You could not hear me, sorry, Mona?
No, just at the very end, like the last part of your sentence.
I was just saying that it is a collective effort across different stakeholders within the ecosystem. It's not just one single player that can enable this. Is the multiple effort and alignment across different stakeholders that can make this happen on a larger scale.
Yeah, amazing. I would also like to ask you, Roberto, I mean, if you have any, because we have a lot of questions that came in, and I think this is also relevant to Omar, about startups and how they can, especially startups with a cause, let's say, or with like social impact, how can they tackle the fundraising challenge, basically?
This is a great question. I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy in the sense that, depending, especially in this region, there are not many investors that are looking at conscious investing, right? So I think that it's clear that governments and corporates aren't fully addressing this problem, and there is a real need for an alternative system of investing, because the investment landscape, yes, is adapting with mainstream tech players now are joining as well. But the investor demand for ethical investment strategies that prioritize, for example, the SGs factors, has really boomed globally. And there is a big opportunity there, right? So if you think about the next wave of millennial entrepreneurs, the millennial entrepreneurs are more socially conscious, and they really understand they can be both financially successful, but also have a measurable impact and meaningful legacy, right? So definitely there is a need. In MENA in general as a region, MENA remains a nascent market. So there are few regional investment players that are really focused on this space. So the opportunity to have mission-driven GCC investors to facilitate conscious investment, ethos based on supporting entrepreneurs, companies globally that choose to harness the power of technology to address today's most pressing economic, societal, and environmental challenges. So definitely the opportunity there is there. I would say there are a few investors here in this region that are already looking into it, and they are trying to implement investment theses that are aligned with the sustainable goal developments or environmental challenges, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, the technology companies are trying to catch up on that. There are impact-focused CVCs as well, corporate venture capitals that are also emerging even in this region. But the thing is, it's not enough, right? So it's really a different segment of investors that we need to have. Conscious investors have expertise in their own core business, rationale and processes for making general investment decisions. They are keen interest in supporting global tech companies that have a social or environmental legacy, and limited access to events, people, and content in this region, right? So they're still lacking behind, what they need in order to thrive. So I would say it's still a big effort in this part of the world to raise funds, even if we are seeing that there are some ideas for conscious collective, conscious investment. Think about, for example, in fintech, all the work that has been done towards financial inclusion, but also financial literacy, that has been really, really important, right? So I think the solution should be a sort of an investment collective, sort of an investment platform that can bring together a community of, say, regional GCC or MENA mission-driven investors that are aligned around purpose, right? So they have a mission, they have a vision, they are all about educating, they understand the community, they look at return, also in terms of generating a positive social or, again, environmental impact alongside a key financial return. So all of this is being developed. It's still very early stage. So right now, social entrepreneurs, it's they really need to still pitch in a way that they need to sell a bit the key financial indicators still, and there is still a lack of funding available specifically for social impact, even if the trends are that this is going to increase, and there are partners that are already working on the sourcing, on the initial due diligence, on the investment thesis, on the advisory committees, so that they can streamline that execution. Still, it will take some time to be more effective, in my opinion, across the region.
That's great. Thank you. So, Sundus, you had your hand raised. Would you like to ask your question? But
Yeah,
I would like to tell you that Omar had to leave because he had another call. You already kept our speakers later than promised. So we have to have like one last question, and then we have to take a break before we continue.
Yeah, actually, Mr. Borto answered my question. My question was regarding the financing and how to sustain a social initiative, because usually we hear about a lot of social initiatives that stop function after some time, either because usually they're not profit driven and they're not supported, but as he cleared just a while ago about, there are many other like investors who would be able to support the social initiatives. So thank you.
And on that particular point, I would like to ask both our speakers, Dr. Kaufman and Roberto, like, what do you think the youth could play here what could be their role in creating, maybe awareness about social investments, or I don't know, like, how could they help in solving this problem since we know that it exists?
Yep. Ira, you want to go first?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I really believe that youth has a very prominent role to play, and as my mother said, if you don't knock on the door, you can't get in to the game, and it's going to take a lot of courage and perseverance, and I think what young people need to do is not only scream about not being included, but really develop really innovative programs like this Fabric Aid, which really demonstrate the power of social entrepreneurship. And I think that what we need to do, Roberto, myself, yourself, professionals in this field, is help to expand it and give outreach. That's what the Global Transformation Corps is really about, is to empower these entrepreneurs, not just to be profit-making, but to be catalyzers of transformation. So we need a network which really integrates human-centered progressive business leaders with these emerging entrepreneurs and impact investors to create, as Roberto says, a new flow of impact money into this region, which it's desperately lacking. And you know, there's a lot of family money being put into religious institutions and humanitarian things, but the real sustaining of humanity is really what's needed. And I think that the people of wealth need to be invited to the table and listen to what the young people have to say. I think that the next discussion has to have a cross-section of people of wealth and interested in social capital and listening to what people have done with that, small amounts of money and how it could be scaled. Because business people want to see change too. It's in their interest. And if you look at the data on a global basis, you know, 75% of the young people in the Middle East want purposeful driven products and supporting those institutions that want to work for them. And the largest growing sector in careers is entrepreneurship in the Middle East. So the Middle East has all of the factors for supporting this kind of venture, and we need to attract the money because you know, it's essential as a resource. I think companies like Microsoft are providing technology. You know, then not the investors, but they have a huge amount of technology and expertise, which can help to scale. So we need all of these factors. And I think the young people need to take a much more prominent role. And, you know, through your efforts and the Global Transformation Corps, that's the kind of branding we need to get out there and attract the kind of attention.
Yeah, I completely agree. Also, just to add on that, I think one dimension has to do with the ecosystem and building the ecosystem. Now, in order to develop an ecosystem, for sure there are factors that you as youth you cannot control, right? But one of the elements to develop an early stage ecosystem like social impact is definitely local connectedness. So the power of coming together as a community, the power of sharing founder to founder ideas, the power, but the quality of those connections, right? Because that would be kind of from the bottom up, raising that awareness, because you come with strong energy, strong, you know, values, ideas. So this is one element. The second one is there is a lot of people that has wealth that want to give back. So, you know, building a sort of a platform where you can put around the same table youth and these people with that have access to capital, but they really genuinely want to give back and are driven by purpose, is something that can enable or can ignite, I mean, this process at the beginning. So these are two angles from where you know, things might happen. As well, we mentioned before the investor side, right? So on the investor side, you know, ideally having a conscious investor that is able to have, you know, to factor into the rating system that usually looks at the team, the business model, the tech product, the product market fit, and investment, added lenses, right? So for example, they should evaluate the company's mission and vision aligned with the SDG goals, for example, or the team diversity, the target demographic and size, impact in terms of scalability, or impact metrics measurement, right, in terms of the capabilities that the solution is going to add, or proven ability to manage risks related to an impact solution, right? So all of these are elements that can enrich and develop conscious investors and conscious investment, but it cannot be the only thing, right? So I believe that you as youth, you have a tremendous opportunity ahead of you, because you come with a way of looking at the world that is already driven by mission and purpose, right? So and there are definitely big crises, as we said before, ahead of us, whether it's healthcare, whether it's supply chain, whether it's environment, and so on and so forth. So the opportunities to work on real problems are really there in front of you. So it's how you leverage the power of being a community, finding other young people that share your same purpose and joining together. It's like when you're not on the social impact side of things and you are a startup, right? And you go and try to fundraise. Usually, why would you do that when you don't even have maybe a prototype, right? And there are many funders that try to raise money from very early on, right? And you don't even know if you have customers that are willing to pay for what you are trying to do. You may want to have capital at a later stage where you would know what to do with their money, and you don't want to dilute the ownership of your company. More or less, it's the same thing here. You have a social capital here, which is youth having the time ahead and the willingness to change and make an impact. So if you come together, the collective power of that community can already achieve many things without the necessity of huge investments.
So yeah, I just want to add a little comment. I mean, I think we need to look at proven models. For example, at Legacy International, they've had a program for many years called Tech Girls, where they work with Middle Eastern young women to learn how to code and create kind of social impact projects. They have a 40-year-old program, flagship program called the Global Youth Village, which brings people together around these social issues to develop a community. Now it's both virtual and residential. So we need to look at sort of proven models and get those proven models in front of people who are really going to be committed to this transformation and change. There are people that are committed. I just don't think they've seen enough of value in this younger generation, and they need to see it as a cost benefit analysis. They're seeing it right now in the United States in terms of voting. Right now, it's making a difference because young people are voting. When the businesses of the world start seeing in terms of spending and purchasing and decision making and attracting talent, these are the elements that are really going to be change agents in the world. And I think that younger people, need to really step up their game and promote what they're doing as they do on TikTok. They promote wonderful dance routines. Well, they can promote social change and transformation routines. And they need to be focused and inspired to do that. They need to use their language to communicate across the world.
So there are wonderful ideas right there, I would say. Dr. Raj?
I just wanted to, if I may, jump in and just say that what we have to realize as impact investors and socially conscious investors are really reawakening to where they started in their own self. When they come into contact with the youngest of children, for example, we have even in our preschools all the way to our high school here in our community, or through our programs like the ones you are in, when they come into contact with people like that, it's a reawakening, and it's a situation where one's earliest values that had impact on them, that made them entrepreneurial or successful in their work or in their business. And maybe, yes, they got off track and they got distracted, became very transactional, very money oriented or personal success oriented. It brings them back, and it's because of people like you, like the young people here today, what Roberto is doing. This is a way of bringing people home. I like to think of it in that sense. Come back to your original self, because when you come back to your original self, that's when you start to care about others. What's happening in this country, for example, with COVID, is yes, people are tired and they don't want to stay home and they want to get out and be with each other. But the reality of the situation is that there's a panoply of issues that have made people not care for one another. And because they don't care for one another, then they turn to other solutions, and they're proper solutions. For example, vaccination. Vaccination may be the protection against or the cure for COVID, but it's not going to prevent the next cycle and the same process. So this is a disconnect also in the healthcare movement. We have to understand that public health is more than just what we think of as health. Public health is security. Public health may be transportation. Public health is many things. When institutions, philanthropies, organizations, governments think that they are providing help by only dealing with medical health, that's when they're cutting back, that's when they're not recognizing the foundational need of public health issues, really essential public health issues, which is education, reverence for life, as Dr. Schweitzer called it, a caring concern for every human being. That's what brings us back to our core values and allows people to put on a mask or to socially distance or to stay at home during Thanksgiving or Christmas this year, because caring for others is caring for yourself. Wanting for your brother what you want, or your sister what you want for yourself. Love thy neighbor. It's very foundational spiritual concepts that we look at, whether it's from an Islamic or Christian or Judaic or a non-religious point of view. This is where we meet. This is where we share the DNA. This is the one family we're all part of. And I think it's really critically important not to forget that. Whenever I lecture to young people, as you know, Mona, that this is it. I keep coming back to the same thing. Remember where you came from. Remember why you are who you are. Remember what you got from your mother's milk, and that's why in the Middle East it's so important, because and parts of Southern Europe, especially other parts of the world too. But it's so important because you still have that connection. You still have that connection, which we sorely miss in the United States. And until philanthropies and until angel investors or impact investors realize that it's just not another transactional thing, we're helping people. It's people have to help themselves. That's our motto. Help me to help myself and others. And so this is what's critically important. Otherwise, it's just another iteration of the same old thing with another new face on it.
Thank you for all the inspiration. It's 9, and I know we should not keep you any further. Thank you for your willingness to stay longer than planned with us. And I'm sure that this foundation talk has helped the youth greatly with the brainstorming. You gave them a lot of good ideas and examples to start researching about. And again, if you would like to share anything with us to share on the Slack, we would really be grateful for that. Thank you so much, Dr. Rash. Thank you, Dr. Kaufman. Thank you, Roberto, Linda, Omar, and again, all our supporters. We will take a 10-minute break and then we will be back, and it will be very exciting because the teams will actually have the chance to start working on their innovations and to meet their team members if they haven't done so yet. So again, thank you so much for everyone.
Thank you, everyone.